welcome back to the homestead. I'm Michelle. Well, I'm sitting outside the cabin here. I'm sitting right next to some of our garden beds here. And it is a super nice morning. It is supposed to be turning into thunderstorms later. And we are getting really hot temperatures right now. Today is supposed to get into the 80s, and we're getting more and more light as we're approaching summer solstice. And a shout out to you shed warriors. Now, some of these garden beds, we had gotten some things planted in them a couple weeks ago. We got some cabbages, we got carrots, we got kale, we got mustard greens, we got salsify. We got a few big radishes going, and I've also got my rhubarb here that is ready to harvest. Now, when we had planted stuff in the garden beds here, I had some plastic, and I soon realized that when I did not get the plastic taken off the garden beds, I had it hanging over the side here, and I caused some of my rhubarb plants to go to seed. So I need to go ahead and trim off those seed pods so I will get another harvest of rhubarb. Now in the spring, I normally put manure down, I put bone meal, and I put a good fertilizer into the ground there around my rhubarb so I can get an early harvest. You know, rhubarb is super high in vitamin C, and it has a lot of fiber. Now, you don't want to consume too much of the rhubarb because you might get an upset stomach. Now, generally, rhubarb is a cold weather plant, but rhubarb can be grown in many other climates. Now, generally, you will harvest your rhubarb in the early spring. Now, you can force your rhubarb to harvest it early if you put buckets over the rhubarb, and the rhubarb will force its way up to the light, and it will produce nice tender shoots. But I have forgotten that when I had started planting in the garden beds here, that I had some plastic, and I had placed my plastic on the side, forgetting about my rhubarb, and I have forced my rhubarb to go to seed because it was too warm. But let's get harvesting some of this rhubarb. Okay, so generally when I harvest my rhubarb, I like to wait till the stalks are about 12 to 18 inches long. Now, you can harvest them earlier. They're a little more tender that way. Is what I will be doing is gently just pull these plants, pull the stalks back and forth so it pulls right up. That way you're not cutting it off and you're gonna force it into another harvest. So we are gonna be cutting these off because the leaves are toxic. And even though this is not completely red yet, it's still edible, and rhubarb is fairly tart. So this will make some nice desserts. Now, I'm not going to completely harvest everything today. See how that pulls away from the plant? That's what you want. Now, it's said that rhubarb has a lot of anti-cancer fighting abilities, so it is super, super good for you. the bigger they do get a little more fiber. But if you were to harvest these when they're a little bit younger, it's a little more, the stalks are a little more tender. And just a shout out to you shed warriors. I'm going to be weighing in. Now by, wow, that one. By pulling off my rhubarb like this, I will get a second harvest from this. If you just planted your rhubarb, you're not going to get much of a harvest the first year. Alright, that's all I'm going to harvest from this plant. Let's go over to this other one. See how nice and red those are? Those are beautiful. So I am going to try to finish harvesting these, and I want to go out and collect some wild roses and some other things around the property. Right, that's going to do it for this plant. Okay, so here is the rhubarb seed. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off so it will continue to produce. If you leave this on, it sends signals to the plant to go to seed and that the harvest is done. We're going to harvest what we can on this plant. You don't want to waste anything. Now if the stalks are still a little green, they're going to be really tart. Here is another seed bulb right here. I'll show you. There's actually 2 seed bulbs. Okay, so here is the seed bulbs on this one. It's got one here and one right down here. And it's got a really big stalk on it. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut off also. There we go. Rhubarb is really super easy to grow, and it's really drought tolerant. You almost cannot kill a rhubarb. Now you can split up your rhubarb as it gets older. Now generally rhubarbs have really deep roots, and the roots and the stalks contain a lot of water. So and depending on how big your stalks get is going to depend on if you provide it with any type of organic manure. I usually put manure down. I put bone meal and just a general fertilizer I will give my rhubarb early in the spring. Now rhubarb plants do like good nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. Now that's kind of optional if you want to fertilize your rhubarb plants, but that's just what I do, and I usually get a lot of rhubarb from my harvests. But today I'm going to go ahead and cut these up into about 1/2 inch pieces here. So I've got a few more plants out there at the other garden area where Mark and I have been prepping, and we're getting in our second high tunnel. And we're also going to get them weighed because we got to have a weigh-in with Shed Wars. So every couple years I like to divide my plants and either give them away to friends that want rhubarb plants. That way it kind of keeps my rhubarb plants healthy. We are going to make a rhubarb vinaigrette with this and collect a few things from the garden for a nice little salad for lunch. So we're going to write this down for Shed Wars. So 2.5 pounds. All right, so another 2.5 pounds. All right, another 2.5. A 1/2 ounce. So we've got, here's 5.5. 5.5 pounds. Okay, so for our vinaigrette, we're going to need a 1/4 cup of honey. You can use something else if you like besides honey. You could use sugar. We're going to need a cup of water. One cup of water. Putting this on medium heat, and when this starts to boil, we're going to add 2 cups of rhubarb. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar. Just going to wait for this to come to a boil. All right, so this is already to a boil. We're going to go ahead and add our 2 cups of rhubarb. And we're going to go ahead and let this boil for about 5 minutes until the rhubarb is tender. So as this boils, try to stir it, often. You don't want to just leave it. We want that rhubarb to get nice and tender. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and add a little dash of lemon juice, or you could use lemon zest, a little bit of lemon zest. And just keep stirring it. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. We're going to go ahead and take this off the heat. So we'll just let that set and cool off. Okay, so our vinaigrette is nice and cool. It's got like a sauce type mixture to it. Now we're going to go ahead and add some avocado oil. You can use olive oil, but I am using roughly about a 1/4 cup. Now if you wanted, you can add some seasoning to your vinaigrette also. Okay, so our vinaigrette is ready to go. Now this is not a super sweet vinaigrette. You could add sugar to it, or you could add spices to it, whichever you like. So I'm going to have this on a salad. I went ahead and collected a few more things from the garden. So right here I have what they call strawberry spinach. This grows in Alaska. And I accidentally pulled up some more of the plant than what I wanted, but the leaves are really edible, and so it's kind of like a wild spinach. They call this strawberry blight or strawberry spinach, just because it has these little almost like a fruit growing on it, and they kind of taste like strawberries. So I normally let them get a little bit bigger. I normally let the little strawberry pieces get a little bit bigger, but they are super great in a salad also. And then I've got some of my kale from my garden to add to it. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for this video. A shout out to you shed warriors. I got my first weigh-in. 5.5 pounds of rhubarb and 1 pound of spinach, kale, lettuce, and strawberry blight from the garden. So I'm getting ready to have some of this on my salad, and I'm glad you guys stuck around for this video. So don't forget to subscribe and like our channel. Bye now.